Hello, everybody. This is Alicia, Liz, and Ant, and we are Servant Decoded. And welcome back today for our deep dive into Season 4, Episode 3, Seance. Hi.
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 How are you guys feeling after a little more digesting of the episode now?
We're going. A lot's happening, sort of, or not happening. It's all right.
It does
I feel
that way.
odd, conflicted, perhaps.
I feel a little less confused.
A little less confused for sure, but conflicted. I mean, on my end anyway.
Is that
We have a
something
lot.
that we'll get to, or?
I mean, there's a lot of plates thing. It seems.
I think the part of what I'm experiencing is like sifting through in my brain the things that are important and the things that may not matter anymore, or at this point, if the thing that I like, if the theory that I'm leaning into is true, then there's a lot of stuff that is like, okay, well, that doesn't matter, or is that does that address?
Yeah,
I know
And
exactly what you mean.
those are some of our favorite parts.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah,
Like the mobile, you know.
Oh, we were talking about that before.
yes,
Like that's not really going to mean anything
Well,
in
no,
the end, is it? Or lead to any big revelations?
no, it's just set dressing, but it's interesting at the time. And the relevance, like, I guess, in the moment of those episodes, sure.
Well, and I think I was looking closer at it, and I know we talked about this in a previous podcast last year that we did, but I was looking at everything that's on the mobile again. I was looking at the, and just thinking that like everything on it looked dead. Like the chef looks, he's got the sunken in eyes that are,
Yeah, he was a big old tired man.
Yeah, and then there's the cloth doll that has the noose around its neck.
Normal.
There's a black horse, at least one, but there's I think 2 or 3 other horses as well. So is that like 4 horsemen of the apocalypse?
You noticed that too, Liz?
Well, there's the dancer with no face.
Oh, right, that too. That was
That could go with death. A lot of the biblical parallels I've been trying to look for, or connections. There's a lot of talk of the end of days,
right,
revelations.
And I was thinking too, like, okay, so if we look at the mobile and clues like that, were those clues early on as to what's going on? Like, hey, Jericho's dead, or people are dead in here, or is it still does it matter? Because if that is the case, then I don't know. What is it?
It could also
like window dressing.
Right.
Yeah, it could just be that, like, I mean, some people would choose to decorate a show like this, like Doorbell, and everybody sucks and is upset, but everything is like cool and like they have a nice house and whatever. But this, it's like the atmosphere is reflecting the nonsense. Like the half dead chef could be Sean.
Right.
The faceless dancer, I mean, they have the mannequin in the attic, or like, like unrealized dreams of Leanne, or
yeah.
Oh, that could be foreshadowing too, because dancing. Oh, that's interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think it's nonsense, but
it's not nonsense. It's just not as severe as people might.
Correct. Back then, it's like, ooh, another clue, another clue, another clue.
No, it's just reinforcing a feeling.
Right.
Yeah. And so I feel like kind of like I felt about Lost, where it's like, look, I feel like some people will feel like, oh, I didn't have every question answered. But I think that when we get to what was always going on of it, then a lot of these questions will then be implicitly answered anyway, or won't matter anymore.
Exactly.
I feel like I know what. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And that's how I felt about Lost when it was ending. Like I still personally feel like all the questions were answered specifically, but for those people that didn't feel that way, I do think that what happened in the end and the answers we were given explain stuff that maybe people still felt was a little ambiguous.
It was just about people.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I think The Leftovers did it a little better, but it was just about people. And this kind of the same thing, I think, a little bit.
Just on a smaller scale. This is about, this family and...
Yeah, like grief and image and obsession and
I think
being a mother.
Yeah. Mystery Box shows work when you have both the mythology, but an insular story as well.
So that's rare.
It is.
I can think of maybe one other.
Yeah.
The one something about Servant that sets it apart is that typically in shows like Lost and The Leftovers, you have the overall mythology, and then ultimately it's a story about people, but typically it's people that you really care about. And
Right.
I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know if
Whether
people are really like, but I just love Sean so much, or I care
uh,
about their marriage so much.
nobody's really all that charming. He tries to be a good husband, but he's just a tired man. I
But
mean,
you know
he's
what I mean?
probably
Like, it's not like this is
like
us on an
no,
island.
no, it's really not the point, I don't think.
Although, and I mean, I have empathy for them.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
But like,
Yeah.
compare your feelings about the servant characters to the ones on Lost.
Well,
Right.
it's more, I think it's more of like you're supposed to like, oh shit, my relationships are weird too. Like I feel it's like more like a tone thing than actually the people themselves.
Really? Because, like, I loved Sawyer. I loved,
Oh no. I mean for Servant, like nobody's really all that charismatic. They are in moments, but it's really more about like, oh fuck, yeah, I have empathy or whatever.
yeah, I'm just saying, I think the tone of the show
Yeah.
it's different in that way. That it's not about
Right.
people that will stay in your hearts when the show's over.
Mm-mm.
Well,
But
and Lost was very much about redemption too.
right.
Yeah, but it was also about like, oh shit, I love you, and we like mean something to each other because of this weird thing that happened. Not like one to one. I just mean like all of them as a collective.
Right. Well,
Maybe not Nikki and Paolo.
is there anything, Liz, that you want to say about the title other than, I mean, obviously there was a seance.
Yeah, I have absolutely nothing
Yeah.
for this one. And I really didn't have a lot of time to look.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I feel like it's just straightforward, truthfully.
Yeah, spiritualism.
Yeah. So the opening scene is them doing their little performance and
Sean applauding
on applauding.
enthusiastically.
Mhm.
And
That was so
Like,
good.
Yeah.
super not happy with it. I don't know. I know this is probably weird. I'm just trying to think of like little things that I thought were interesting. I did think it was interesting that they said bonjour.
Yeah.
Did that give anybody else pause?
Sound of music, Mary Poppins. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I say it because I took French. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Well, maybe I mean,
yeah.
what are they? Bev and Bobby? That could be.
It could have just been to emphasize what their little speech is. Like, we've been all over the world.
Yeah, like
And
look how whimsical we
true.
are.
Good point.
everywhere we go, we heal
Yep.
people.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh, did they say that?
Kind of, right?
Yeah, I mean, they said they've seen hundreds of patients from Montclair to Monterey.
Yeah.
Oh, I live not very far from Montclair. Wow.
That was my next question: is where's Montclair?
I mean, there's one here in New Jersey, but there's also maybe in British Columbia. Or, I have to get my globe.
Monterey was California, so
Yeah.
yeah.
State to
maybe like
state, coast to coast.
The other, I did make note that like Roberta and their dad's name or their uncle's name was Robert. So I thought, I don't know. I thought that was just again something I wrote down. It may not mean anything or matter. But out of everything that they said, I did feel like we hope our presence here will make life a breeze.
Yeah, I did a little looking on because we were talking in our first impressions about how they reminded us of Disney characters.
Right.
And I looked up Sleeping Beauty, and they've got Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather, the three fairies. We have two, not three.
Right.
Maybe one is on another job, but one of them always dresses in red. The other one always dresses in green, and then the third in blue. And it seemed to me like that kind of held true. Like one always had teal on, and one always had like a version of magenta.
Yeah.
Right.
They were very specifically stylized, and it was consistent throughout the episode.
Yeah, and along with the talk of healing, protecting.
I think I mentioned in our highlights, and again, sometimes theorizing these days, I'm like, maybe this is stupid or that's stupid or whatever. But
I think it's stupid.
I mentioned something about their maybe they are not alive. Maybe they like if the house is full of spirits, maybe they are spirits in the home. And so when they said we hope our presence here will make life a breeze, to me, I thought, oh, well, that could be a clue, right? Their presence sort of if ghosts are present around them. So that was just kind of, I don't know, maybe it's confirmation bias, but it was something that I thought about and tied to there are dead people there theory.
Well, and also it sounds very much like a fairy tale line, life is a breeze.
They seem to be the inverse of Leanne, really,
Mm-hmm.
so far. I mean, like, they're bringing people to, like, say honest things without really seeming to realize it.
True.
And
That might be a good spot to quickly talk about the
Sure.
many parallels and callbacks we saw in this episode from previous episodes. One of the ones involving them was the cloth bunny that they put in Jericho's crib. With their names on it. They really had fun this episode of teasing the are they or aren't they cult members.
Oh, sure.
Right. So the Auntie Bev and Auntie Bobby.
Oh, right. The aunties.
Yeah. Persuaded that. But visually, it was just very similar to the first few episodes of the first season when Leanne kept putting the straw crosses in there and Sean.
Oh, right.
Oh, right. Kept going in the garbage and then put back.
Right.
Yes.
And so even insofar as Leanne like opening the garbage and seeing that he had put one there and taking it out and putting it back. So the same the same thing to Leanne that she did to Sean in those first few episodes.
That's a great catch. And the whole thing of like, we don't want God in this house.
Yeah.
She's like, we don't want fairy witchcraft in this house.
Even if it isn't witchcraft, it's more like they're just a new positive presence, like another set of helping hands to, oh God, replacement.
We don't,
we
don't
want
want
to be
your
replaced.
positivity in this house.
We don't need to be smiling up in here.
Exactly.
No smiling.
We have our weird baby. Come on.
Well, and we get another kind of callback to how old is Leanne with the like the book for teenagers.
Well, they might not know.
Yeah,
and she looks pretty young. She's 18 or 19, right?
18, 19 at this point, yeah.
But they're going based on the way she's reacting. They don't have the context of being afraid of these other people. So she's just being evil because they're new.
Right.
And they just think like, oh, well, we're like, two more mother figures for this young girl to have to contend with going through, development or whatever it is.
I have been wondering, based on what happened with Julian and her in bed, the conversation that they had, where she laid out what appears to be
clues,
cult identifiers, right?
Yeah.
So,
oh, right.
Yeah. So Julian's saying like, hey, I checked their references. They seem legit. And Leanne's like, you're not looking hard enough. They're either going to have a fake name, an obituary, or a missing piece of time.
Correct.
Which, missing piece of time for me was the big one because I was like, wait a minute. And that also got my head going in other directions.
Oh, obituary got me too. Well, really all three of them.
All three, yeah.
Well, right, because we talked about that in Pigeon, I think. Why was there a gravestone for Leanne?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we talked about it, if your real identity is erased, you can more easily move from house to house. And how old is she?
But I thought to myself, was she ever Leanne at all?
Exactly.
Have we've been presuming that she was resurrected in some way, reanimated, whatever, or saved, or yada yada, healed from something, but perhaps she wasn't. Perhaps
the real Leanne died in the house fire.
Yeah.
That's
and that would also make more sense as to why like some of those things don't line up with like her age and
exactly.
She was already dead by the time she would have been in this video clip. So it even takes me back to like when we got the reveal of her sitting there like moving her thumbs around.
Yep. Twiddling her thumbs.
And we're thinking like, oh, that 100% means that's Leanne. But then also it could just be that she was taking on that person's
practicing the mannerisms.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. What
interesting.
I just rewatched that episode and that bit. And of course there's the Chloe before her. Isn't that the name, Chloe? There's a girl with one of the names that Sean and Dorothy had picked out.
I missed that.
Yeah. I believe Dorothy says, who are you? And this girl's like, I'm Chloe. And then, who are you?
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Leanne Grayson.
Yeah. So it's like,
Right.
are you though? So I just thought that that was something important to think about. And the missing pieces of time. We've been talking for ages about missing time. So that led me down another rabbit hole. Again, I don't think this is the case, but it did make me wonder if we're talking that much about Dorothy and Sean and Julian having missing time. Is there any kind of implication there that we've talked a lot about, like, hey, was Sean or the Turners like formerly in the cult and now they don't remember that they were in the cult? We've talked a lot about that. So when she's missing time, I wonder if that's further proof of that theory.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, the rewatching old episodes, Uncle George calling her Dottie and calling Dorothy Dottie.
Yeah.
And saying, you know, I've been in your life for a long time, or what does he say? I've known you for
Yeah, you're right. I've known you.
something, girl.
Yeah, basically like I've known of you, or I've known you for a long time. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
They were just talking about, I mean, when a young child focuses on something and or someone, they tend to talk about things a lot. So maybe she talked about Dorothy a lot if they did indeed raise her.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, yeah.
That's one of those things. It could just be one of those things where it's like, oh, well, that could be both. Like, you know, how they kind of do it in the middle with everything else. But
All the double speak. Yeah.
But how would they have known about Dottie? You know, Dorothy.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Dottie. Who knows? But yeah,
we really hung it like on the observation theory for a while. I think that I don't think that theory was entirely incorrect. I think it's just sort of taking shape and shifting what it means as we go further into this. But yeah, I mean, the missing time, and we've said it so much. And then so for Leanne to identify missing time as being a cult identifier was just a really big whoa.
Well, and yeah, what does it mean exactly? Are we meant to take it as there are time gaps in their life resume, or
oh yeah, like what do you mean by that? Because
people who have lost time, like Roscoe claims to have when he was gone.
But what the hell are you talking about then? Not you. I'm saying like the royal you.
Right.
Is like, oh, they have missing time. I could say I feel like I don't know what the hell happened the last 3 hours. You don't know what. You don't have any concept of my consciousness. Like what? Unless they drill down on like trivia about specific years that you like. I don't know how. Yeah, that's a weird thing to.
I want to mention something with the observation theory. I was on Reddit. One Redditor, Farnet2690, she mentioned, you know, the tunnels in the house.
Yeah.
And just gave more credence to the idea of maybe the cult, the Lesser Saints, are meant to be servants of homes in general. So they'd know like where these tunnels are and how to move around them and about. Another Redditor, Scout G, talked about them possibly using the sewers, like when they were in the street attacking, or outside with the balloon.
Yeah. I think we mentioned that early on. I think we mentioned that we were looking for a manhole cover because we were trying to decide if people could have easily, like how people could have disappeared that quickly at the end of the season. And we talked about them using the sewer system, especially with the newscast that talked about the tunnels and the sewer system as well.
That's right. Yeah. But I did like the bit about tunnels because, you know.
Yeah. Well, and that also is a good segue into talking about the new room that's revealed and what we saw and how we felt about that. So yeah, after their intro, Sean leads them to their new room, right? So we went down into a new part of the house, which interestingly, I believe that we did see this door before, and we've talked about it when we were trying to speculate on like what door we would see behind next. And I don't know if you remember, but we knew there was a bathroom door, but then there was another door that seemed like we hadn't been through.
I vaguely remember.
Yeah. And because we would see what's his face, we would see Toby sometimes once or twice go through there. And we were like, And so I think that's the room. I think that is what leads to the apartment, or is like a way to get to the apartment, because Sean said told Julian to take all those Amazon packages downstairs, and he kept saying go downstairs. He didn't say like go to the apartment. So that's why I thought to myself, like, he's not telling him to take it to the basement. He's saying take it to the apartment downstairs. So there's some kind of passageway down those stairs, and we kind of saw that. Like we saw it was really hard to track the layout of the house based on how they got to that apartment. Yeah. For me at least. What I kept writing almost obsessively about it
was you have to leave the house to enter the house. And that may
Right.
sound weird and make no sense, but I just thought it was
Mhm.
cool. Like you have to
Yeah.
leave it
hmm
to get back into it. I don't know. It's my brain at work.
And there
No,
was
that makes
a passageway. So like later in the seance, they talk about a passageway and or some kind of,
Right. The light.
yeah, and the light. And I did really feel like when they were going down that hallway towards the apartment, that it felt very much like a passageway.
Yeah, it
So,
was an odd layout, odd shape. And then the windows, it's like there's bars on the windows and you can kind of see the street level.
and then the room like outside the door itself. So they go like into the door and there's 3 knives that are like laid out on the table. So I was trying to look a little bit closer and it looked like it was probably just chef stuff, but I did think that I don't know, we're just gonna like leave 3 knives out.
Yeah.
So we go in and I clocked the old school intercom. So I just wanted to add that to the list of things that are in the home that are outdated in terms of our modern day times, like similar to the baby monitor. So
Right.
we've got like that really old school intercom. And then again, at the end of the episode, Dorothy, when she sort of wakes up and Leanne is laying next to her at the TV, the sound of the TV is what woke her up, and it was static, which, as most of us know, doesn't really happen anymore.
No, that was the days of yore.
So those were like the 2 things that I noticed in this episode to add to the list of things that don't put them like in the present day.
Out of
Do they have
time.
a VCR up there?
No, if there was a VCR there or not.
Because I think you would get static from a VCR, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check
Yeah.
that.
You're probably right about that. Yeah.
But other than that, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So we go into the apartment, which we talked about on the highlights one about how much we loved it. Was there anything else about the apartment that struck you guys in terms of like the artwork? I did go back and look, and I saw that face, the painting face, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, I'll throw it to you guys about that stuff.
I couldn't find anything. I looked and looked. One thing I thought about the box. Didn't Leanne's box have a hidden bottom?
Oh,
Believe so, yeah.
Like what a great way to get people off your box track.
Liz,
Vibrators.
Great thought. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
Right?
I totally forgot about that, yeah.
Because it looked so much like a culty potion box.
Yeah.
And also because during the seance,
Huh?
is Roberta the tall one?
Correct.
Or Bobby did not seem thrown at all by that dagger. It's just like, don't think I've seen that before. While Bev was like, what are you doing?
That's true. Yeah. Oh, that's a great thought, Liz. I love that. And it makes me think too of the conversation that happens between Julian and Leanne in the bed. So they're in
right.
bed. Yeah. So they're in bed and Julian's like, hey, I've, like we were talking about earlier, the cult identifiers, I checked their references, they seem legit. And Leanne's like, you really wouldn't know what to look for. But he also talks about them not being smart enough to pull a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
I wrote down like, well, maybe they're not smart enough, but somebody probably is. So is that some kind of foreshadowing that like maybe a Trojan horse technique is already underway? But now that you're reminding me about the box, maybe they are smart enough.
Well, and Roscoe, he's a Trojan horse.
That's true.
I already know about him, but
that's true too. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, we think.
Yeah.
I noted when the nurses are around Dorothy, she says, like I've been here for so long and I just want to walk. And they say sometimes the body just needs time. And I wrote, duh. Like how are you helping?
Or, well, that's me thinking too hard.
And then Dorothy says, well, not mine. I'll try anything.
Well, if you need time, maybe her remembering will make her feel, I mean, you're not going to feel better from falling down the stairs, but maybe there was a double meaning there a little bit.
Well, that's what I wondered. Like,
but healing does take time.
Again, the duh.
Yeah.
after it. Oh, wise nurses. What's interesting, though, is that after Dorothy responds with, not mine, I'll try anything, we cut to the crow, and that was Leanne napping and having a bad dream.
So
right.
let's talk about that.
Having the beginning of the vision that was a bad dream.
Right, that we see at the end.
Yes.
Yeah. Black crow. What were some of the things we found on that, Aunt?
That it was like a kind of synonymous with death in the way that it could signify large change or like some sort of growth spiritually or like I guess in life.
Yeah. It symbolizes, it also talks about symbolizing prophecy,
Right.
transformation, change, and freedom.
Really a lot of positive things. Or at least, seemingly positive things.
Yeah.
Well, in fiction, they're often shapeshifters, right?
Right.
And they're often portents of evil to come or danger to come.
Yeah.
They're not looked at kindly.
No, much like death, but death is always misunderstood in that way.
Well,
I'm reading here on a site about, it's called mindbodygreen.com, and they're just talking about crow symbolism. And it says that some consider crows to be messengers that are capable of existing between both worlds. They represent spiritual law, the universal wisdom that the physical world must integrate. That means that crows can be considered a good omen or a bad omen, depending on the context. Seeing a single crow is often thought to be a bad omen. In Native American culture, they view them as messengers between the living and the dead, although sometimes they're depicted as tricksters. And also they, again, intermediary, symbolizing change because they fly with the wind. And then in terms of death, it says, sometimes crows can represent death in a literal or figurative sense. Crows can be an omen of change, sometimes an omen of death, but death doesn't have to be scary. Change always asks for the death of something and a rebirth of something new.
like what you said, Aunt.
Yeah, a little bit.
Is that a dream or is it a prophecy? I think the implication is that all
Could
of
be
that
both.
is prophecy.
Yeah. She knows what's coming. Or she's tied to the house. The entity is tied to the house.
And she's learning. I also think too that Leanne was probably pretty shielded from her capabilities
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for
by
sure.
the cult, because they knew that she was susceptible to darkness and they were trying to keep that from happening.
Or just really powerful. And in the wrong hands, the wrong type of power, she could easily sway.
Right.
Yeah, like they wouldn't give her a rum springer. Right.
No, I was gonna say she's too powerful and she doesn't understand how to use it necessarily.
Right.
Even now, technically.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's still figuring it out.
Oh, did we talk about when Sean was leading the nurses to the apartment? He says, there's a hat festival every Thursday.
Yeah, what?
I wrote it down, I chuckled about it, but we haven't mentioned it, no.
What the fuck?
Was he being I missed that. Was he being sarcastic or?
Well, in the quaint town of Philly, they do things like that, hat festivals.
No, I know, but like what a weird thing to just pick, like.
Exactly.
Very weird. It doesn't make any sense.
It makes it's like we have a glove festival on Fridays.
I could see if he was being sarcastic, but like why would you have that more than once a month or a year?
Exactly.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, goody.
Not only that, but we've never seen anyone wearing hats.
Right.
Like, you'd think
Like, what
if
even
there was
is
a
it?
hat festival in their backyard, we might see more hats.
Maybe.
Bobby's like, I'm good. I've got my turban.
Yeah.
I got my turban.
Like,
But
maybe
yes,
she got
I
it at
did
the
make note of
festival.
that because I just thought it was a very, very strange thing for him to say, and also a strange thing to exist.
It was like a joke,
That's
right?
pretty,
A little lol.
I would think so,
I
yeah.
think, but he didn't sound like he was joking.
Well, it's such a throwaway line. Maybe the writers were like, what would be the dumbest festival possible to sound folksy?
Okay, so after she wakes up from her dream, we cut to Julian having his conversation with the Shining Twins. I just want to say here, I thought it was interesting that he called them the Shining Twins because in Pigeon, those twins that were standing there in front of the car, in my opinion, were more reminiscent of the Shining Twins.
Well, from the trailer, I thought, oh, this is from Halloween.
Yeah.
From that episode. And they're the twins from The Shining. obviously.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was just a weird time for that to be brought up, especially when I felt like they kind of did that already. So is this purposeful or was it just
Well, this season has been largely written and directed by his daughters,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And their father is he's known for his horror
Right.
movies. There've been so many homages to the greats,
right?
and maybe that was just another one. Like, we didn't make it clear.
Yeah.
So here you go.
It's just a very easy reference too for twins, and you know,
Yeah.
Julian would probably make the connection.
And they're talking at the same time a lot of times.
Yeah, it's just
So I added them also though to the list of people that really talk to Julian and treat him like he's a boy, like he's a child.
Yes. My
Like-
little schmoopy whooping, the pinching of the cheeks.
I can't
And
believe you just said schmoopy, Liz. I'm pausing for a moment.
I was going to add earlier.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but yeah, they treat him like he's a boy. I wrote in my note, Sergio, is that you?
oh boy.
Because I'm gonna hold on to that one till the credits roll on episode 10.
Yes, you should.
Until it's proven that has nothing to do with anything. But
because they look so much. The
so much
screenshot you did, the side by side.
Yeah.
There's no denying.
Yeah. And Dorothy talks to him like he's a child too regularly.
Yes.
Mhm.
There's just been a lot of that. So I don't know. It was just, if I was making a list of my Julian, Sergio, whatever, I would add that to my list.
Oh, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah.
So they're
Mhm.
all basically they're going around to everyone saying, well, everyone being Sean and Julian, right? Just saying like things are negative, Dorothy's negative. We
Right.
need to pick things up and then
And help.
things will get better. Right. And help.
Yeah. And they do also talk to Dorothy about, the fact that maybe she's not making progress because it's something cognitive or psychical,
Yep.
Right.
which
What could that
obviously
be?
right. I wonder.
In my notes, I noted the spine is connected to everything, dear. It's possible something cognitive or psychical may be what's getting in your way. The very definition of a somatic problem. And there's another
Mhm.
Freudian term, but yeah.
Oh, for sure.
I also noted something Dorothy says, while she's kind of being depressed and feeling sorry for herself, she always focuses on Jericho. I've noticed this not just in this season, but past seasons. We would always comment on how she's never been Mother of the Year. But when she talks about him, I'm a lioness and I hear him crying. All I want to do is hold him. And he's wondering where mommy is. And
But he's probably not.
Yeah.
it's like she's making up this
He's like projecting.
relationship that isn't present.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
he's very ornamental.
Well, because he isn't present. Yeah.
Well, that too, but yeah.
Like when she's saying, I'm depressed because he's depressed, like he's crying and he's wondering, why isn't mommy coming? That's what she says. And then I keep going back to the Seance moment and the Jericho episode. And it's like, well, yeah, that did happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple years ago.
And yeah, I felt the same way. I felt it's just that, like, she has this impression of herself as a mother that is not true, either because she's just not that type of a mother, and or she just didn't get that far into motherhood. So they're doing a book tour, handing out books to everybody.
Oh boy, yeah.
And we've got Sean doing the 5 love languages. And he seems to really focus on acts of service, which makes sense.
And he's cooking again.
Yeah. It also reminded me of, like, I remember in season 1 when he was trying to teach Leanne about how to do and he puts the cloche top back on the plate and he says to her, service, right? And he puts it on before he takes it out. So I definitely feel like that's his love language. Most people try to love people in their own love language, which is why there's so many miscommunications, right? But
right, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sean and Leanne definitely bonded over cooking, right?
Yeah. Julian received an organizational book, which was kind of to me. Of course, Leanne received the social skills for teens. Then Dorothy received one, presumably, on astral projection.
That was amazing.
So
What does
talk
that
about
mean?
that for a second. Aunt, we talked a little bit about it. Can you kind of give us a brief thing on astral projection?
It's just like the idea that you can like focus yourself enough to like, I guess, get to a state of like sleeping or dreaming where you can like project yourself out of your body and like consciously see things out, like visit people potentially or go see certain areas. If you focus on a certain area, you can like actually see like the house or the room that like you're intending to investigate. It's like kind of hokey, but some people adhere to that.
Yeah.
You know, you're able to like access these places that you can do that.
Right. What are your
No.
thoughts?
Oh, I've mentioned the movie Insidious a few times. And that's, you know, exactly what's happening. The sun is astral projecting at night and then gets stuck. So yeah, that's wild with their dire wolves. One of the characters, Bran the Broken, is paralyzed. And he starts like obsessively warging so he can be free and run and fly. So wondering why Dorothy got that book. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Well, she can both, so maybe she can project herself
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Yeah, I was wondering why she was reading it. What is she trying to do? Right? Why did they give it to her? We're assuming that they gave it to her, right? So it was on the
And everybody else's is kind of an obvious thing.
Yeah. It says here on Wikipedia that it's a term used in esotericism to describe intentional out-of-body experience that assumes the existence of a subtle body called astral body or body of light, through which consciousness can function separately from the physical body and travel through the astral plane. So yeah, it makes me wonder, are they giving her that to try and help her to wake up and realize what happened? Are they doing
I think they're just approaching it based on her like physical situation. I don't know that do they know more than that, really?
Yeah, that's the question.
That'd be like the opposite of what you want to do for someone that's trying to heal. You'd want them to be grounded in their body.
Yeah,
I would think.
There was another book too that was on astral projection that we saw.
Where?
I thought it was next to the candle. Leanne was looking at that candle.
Right.
And there was another one there. I think it was a different one from whichever one.
I'm waiting for the shorter one to turn around and be like, I'm a cultist. You know?
Yeah, she is the one that seems a little more kooky or creepy to me.
Yeah.
I don't know about y'all, but it also made me think when Aunt said that about Lost. And when we did one of our videos last year, we were talking about the comparison between the Aunt Josephine video of the cult sort of made us feel like we were watching one of the Lost orientation videos. And searching for those, and there was a list that showed what they were trying to accomplish in one of the stations on the island in Lost, and so one of them had remote viewing on that list.
Really?
Yeah. And so anyways, I thought that was another interesting tie to Lost.
They can't all be by coincidence.
I don't think so.
I'm gonna have to go back and look for that one.
And I think Ishana is a big Lost fan, if I remember from our
That's right. You said that.
So anyways, so we had those books, and then
Leanne comments on Sean's cooking. Like I was wondering if you were ever gonna get back to that, or I was getting worried. And I wrote bullshit. Bullshit, Lamb.
I did think it was interesting that Sean said that he dropped out of culinary school. Did we know that?
I don't think so.
No. But when Leanne asks him what he's doing, Sean seemed nervous. He was like, "Oh, I got the day off and a night shoots later tonight, and thought I might play around." And Leanne's just like, "Okay, yeah, good." Ominously.
A reaction.
I'm watching you.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand for some reason that there needs to be like a balance to things, I think.
Oh God, no.
So like, why are you not just doing the thing you love and wanted, I guess?
Or why are you not doing the thing that I told you to do? That
I gave you the opportunity to, like a ungrateful little
brat.
chef.
Yes.
I thought when he dumped the Petivier down the garbage disposal, that was another parallel.
It's a callback to Ring, right?
Yeah, right. To Ring at least, but I know there's been other times. But one of the things, but definitely Ring. I also thought that it sounded very much like a monster devouring food.
Ooh.
It was just like how I felt watching it and listening to it. And then there was blood. It wasn't blood. It was something, red. It was from the meat, I'm sure, whatever the sauce. But like, it just looked to me. And I remember there's another time where we see him where we see the red wine dumped down there, and it kind of has that same look. But it did lead me to thinking about the theory about what's going to happen, based on something that we've been talking about, and then that I found by accident last week.
What?
So shall we talk about that now?
Yes. Yeah.
So I was looking when I'm going back and I'm doing these and I'm matching up, looking for screenshots from other episodes, because I like for you guys to, like, if we're talking about something, I like to be able to show it from a previous episode, so you can put the dots together too and see it. And so I'll do that, and a lot of times I will find different clips or different moments that I had forgotten about or didn't think about or whatever, or that in some way seem relevant now in a way that maybe didn't before. And so I was all up in episode 1-7 Haggis, and I was pulling stuff from Natalie, because that was her first episode. Right. And at the very end of the episode, Leanne is sitting in her bedroom watching the TV, and she's listening to one of those pastors or preachers, evangelical
Televangelist.
Televangelist. Okay. And I don't know. I think when we did our pigeon episode is when I said this. I think I said it on here. We were joking, but I said, I think the house is going down. Like, I do not think that this house is falling apart. I think it's going down. I think it's going to be completely going to collapse in on itself. And then I happened upon this clip and I was like, ooh, and it got me real excited.
But if the Lord creates something new and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into hell, then you shall know that these men have betrayed the Lord.
So when he's talking about this, he's really drawing the imagery of the earth opening up and hell swallowing people into it.
And bypass purgatory and just go straight to hell.
Yes. And so I thought that perhaps that was that, like, the idea of this house falling apart and essentially the ground opening up and swallowing everything here is indeed where we're heading.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty 1-to-1.
You could have knocked me over with a feather when I saw that clip.
I was like,
Yeah.
It's all right there.
For anybody listening, I like immediately sent the clip by email. I was like, you have to watch this.
Yeah, I remember. I watched it and I emailed you back immediately. That was wild.
I mean, crazy. And so I just thought about it again when I saw the garbage disposal, and it sounded like a monster, like eating the food. And I just thought, this is like a small representation of the ground opening up and eating its food, which is everything and anything that's going on in the Turner home.
Well, and same with the termites.
Yeah.
And the cracks and, whatever, all the destruction that's already occurred and still occurring in the house.
Right.
It's literally falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and then we have the picture of the pit from the trailer and the drawing. Yeah. It's so spot on.
Yeah. So that did also, though, even like listening to what he said, because it says that like the ground is swallowing up, alive with all of their things. So I did wonder what that could imply about like who's alive and who's dead. I still don't know that they're all dead. I think, or they're dying as the series has gone along. I don't really know, but I do feel like there's probably at least one person that is alive. Maybe not by the end of it, but
maybe all that'll be left is Toby in his pink raincoat.
He seems special to me.
Right?
They'll have like put him out of the house.
He's at least normal.
And then like he'll be walking down the street and he'll turn around and the entire thing will collapse into the ground, and he'll realize that like them keeping him at arm's length the whole time saved his life.
Yes.
Anyways, they do mention the Dorothy's hope is waning quickly.
Well, I love that shot of her just going down in the bed, like sink down into my depression.
Yep. And they're like, hey, we believe that to help Dorothy heal, there must be honesty. So that also made me think too about like them being spirits. If they were spirits, they're all knowing. They already know what's going on. So perhaps if they are not alive, perhaps if they are spirits, they're trying to help them. They're trying to be like, hey, before like some bad stuff is going on and we're trying to help you, so you can move on. Before
people on Reddit have mentioned like the rings and the crystals and
yeah.
God knows what other stuff they have. They could very well be other types of servants trying to do good. Yeah. That so far so good, right?
Because we certainly would need another faction at this point. I'm being sarcastic.
Of course. And a third
when
thing.
Sean says that the family doesn't cope well with loss, and they've had a lot of loss in this house, and he's like Dorothy and Julian's mom and others. I wondered if we meant others meant like the babies, or does others mean even more people that we don't know about, or both? What do you guys think?
I took it to mean others that Julian and Dorothy lost at a young age, because the way they are with each other and just the way they are individually, it makes me think that they lost their mom at a really young age.
Right.
And there was probably more loss because they're both pretty traumatized people.
I felt like though that there was a suggestion that made it sound like they were a bit older than I thought that they were when they lost her.
From what episode? Do you remember?
From this episode, just by the like.
I'd have to go back and rewatch.
I'd have to rewatch and tell you why I felt that way. But it just that they were not kids. Like maybe they were teenagers or somewhere in that neighborhood.
I believe you. For some reason I thought I just seen something that indicated that they were younger, but
so they use this to suggest their radical suggestion, which is the seance.
Right.
So what do you think that in their mind, like what was the point of the seance? If they were feeling like that was going to help, what did they think that it would do?
Sometimes people, I mean, really quite often, and probably the entire time, to be honest with you, like most of spiritualism is based around people's grief and like needing to accept that, I guess this isn't the way to accept somebody's gone, but like, trying to talk to your dead whomever gives you a sense of control, I guess, or a sense of like, oh, well, we'll see each other later, or I could say, hey, grandma, what's this, that, and the other, and then somebody can like placate me for the moment. Or so I guess in that way it's therapeutic. Maybe they figured to be extreme, like go like total opposite of reality, or what is believed to be reality.
I think control is a really good word to use, Aunt, because we have no control over death. We have no control over how we feel when we lose someone.
Right.
And a seance is a great way to give the illusion of that control back.
Also,
I think when they said, set your intention, say it out loud. If they're super new agey, it might be like she'll set her intention for whatever it is that she needs. Like she knows what she needs subconsciously. So we're going to help give her that.
Are you guys, do you lean personally towards believing that we can communicate with the spiritual realm, or that there is one to communicate with, or not?
Absolutely.
Do we have time for another podcast?
And I have. So
yeah. I've had some things happen too, and some stuff that I've done that so I do as well. But yeah.
Oh yeah.
My grandmother came to me in a dream the night that my father passed and showed me where we were going to scatter his ashes.
Wow.
And this was information I didn't have prior.
Wow.
And other things, but yeah, I totally believe.
Yeah. So I've always been told that you are like that if you do have a spirit that's around and that you can communicate with them, you can talk to them, right? So if you acknowledge them, that's what I was always told. If you acknowledge them, then if they're doing something that you don't want them to do, you can just ask them to stop. Or even just saying like, hi, I hear you.
Right.
You're here. It's, hello. And like just that acknowledgement will stop trying to get your attention if, once they
like a person, like if it was a person in the room, like a physical,
like a little toddler banging on pots and pans. You're like, I see you and I hear you.
I know you're here. So perhaps too, that's their goal you know, is to
Mm.
if death was the situation, and Sean
Yeah,
confirmed that for
but
them. And they're like, well,
right.
maybe if we can get her communicating with whoever is here, that will help her to let that stuff go. But yeah,
Yeah,
asking for help.
but they also focus it on certain items, which is a thing to contact specific people, and then like they go on and like just kind of tell a story. Like it's very haphazard, strange way of trying to.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we agreed that they started out doing like a cold reading, like
Yeah,
a fake seance, but then something real did appear
Well,
to happen.
yeah, it seemed to, but I guess it always kind of seems to. But Julian had a visceral reaction.
Well, she's like, I'm having the clearest vision that I've ever had.
Me too.
I think she was surprised by what she was seeing and hearing.
And the stuff with their mom seemed to be a little specific
Well, yeah.
enough
Sure.
for there to be some believing there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you take a risk saying red hair,
Well, sort of.
right?
Lots.
I forget if it's dominant or recessive or
It's
how that would have
recessive.
worked.
It's recessive, so it would be an obvious thing that like one of her parents would have red hair.
Okay.
For the
Yeah.
most part. I mean, there's always exceptions, but I think, yeah, I mean, if she has red hair like that and it's not dyed,
Yeah.
then
Mhm.
you would assume that one of the parents would have had to have had it.
Right.
Oh, this is the part that made me think they were young. When she says, mom, and you would climb into bed with her, bad dreams,
Mhm.
when you were
Sure,
a little
yeah.
girl. And Dorothy's like, oh my God, I forgot about that. I wrote, mom may have died when they were too young to have formed many
Yeah.
memories or,
Mhm.
solid memories of her.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
Because you don't typically forget stuff like that. Like, oh, I used to climb my mom's bed, or, go to them when I had a nightmare. Anyway, that's
No, good point. Yep.
Oh, for sure.
I agree. So yeah, they're doing the seance. They talk about a tunnel with the white light on the other side. We talked a little bit in our other one about the bathroom being so white, and we had talked before about maybe that being a point of access to the other side.
a very special bathroom.
Very special bathroom. Yeah. And you brought something up, Liz, in an email that I do think that we also talked about this in a previous podcast, but I don't remember which one. But you were rewatching and you noticed the looking up and seeing like the white light from the top and looking down in Jericho and seeing like all of the black smoke and whatnot, and that being indicative of heaven and hell. And I just wanted to bring that up again for our listeners that are listening currently, because that happens in Jericho. And yeah, I remember thinking the same thing, and we may have talked about it or not, but yeah, I think that's another symbolic indicator of the house itself, right? And it being
and
some kind or something like that.
M. Night Shyamalan also he said, I think of the attic as, like closest to heaven, and then the basement, and that's when he talked about like vices, and it draws you down to your darkest parts.
So if he was considering the attic closer to heaven, then what would the roof be? And maybe that's the more important meaning about the intro this year.
Well, that leads me to my question. I had my notes about the vision. If that's what was in Leanne's journal, along with the rooftop picture or, tableau, those drawings are like spells or wishes that Leanne makes.
Are
Right.
they?
Well, she's having vision.
Aren't they?
Are they foreshadowing and more like prophecies and foreshadowing of things to come, and not her? I don't know. I mean, it could go. I know we talked about like when she would draw stuff would happen, but is that what it is? Or
I think it's a progression of that, maybe.
Well, that's what I thought it was. That first she had to write in the Bible, and then she progressed to drawing.
Right.
And now she can just do mind control. I was just wondering, why would she have drawn this hellscape and herself up on a roof kind of overlooking the city in ruins if she didn't? We can go into the darkness if you want, but I was just wondering, like, what would that be a wish for or a spell for? Like, overlooking the city could be like power, like, look at my domain,
I don't know. What do you think, Aunt?
Or like it's just like her influence, like being exerted over the city when I guess she had a vision of whatever that thing in the house was, and like that's how she chose to. Because then I don't know, because the other thing she made happen though. That's the
the Julian with or Jericho with strings, like a puppet.
Oh, right. I remember that.
The bees that attacked and then died.
Right.
The octopus.
But then is the darkness that's overcoming her, is that what is totally taking over, like little by little? And so was that part of the dark energy trying to
Sway her
thoughts and sway her?
Yeah. As we discussed before we started recording, the way I've come to understand it, it's not like, is it Leanne? Is it the dark? It's the darkness was has been attached to this house, and Leanne just happens to be a good vessel, and she has some power from the cult, and and she has become attached to the house, the darkness as well. So the darkness is like using her to work its way, or work its whatever it wants. It's using her as a servant.
She's
serving the darkness
of the house. She's a servant of the house,
of the darkness that lives in the house, or that's tethered to the house.
Right.
Yes. And this is a thing of evil and trauma and death. And it would make sense all those times when she would say, I feel it in me. It's growing. I don't know what it is, but it feels good. Like it's an alien force.
Yeah.
Tempting her the same way that she's tempted Sean and Julian.
Right. Yeah.
She's like some power little girl.
Yeah.
And why it would feel so
great.
good.
I think those are great thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
What do you think, Aunt?
I don't know.
Come on. Does that make sense to you, or what do you think?
Yeah, it does. I'm still having a hard time with that being a thing. It's like I don't understand where. I mean, I know there's been like little touches of like the house is cursed in some way, but it seems more that it should come from Leanne based on the seed of the show. Seems like a strange curveball to just. But there have been little touches that I'm like maybe there is something wrong. But like, then why would she be drawn to those people?
Right.
The youths.
No, the Turners, only to make it worse or activate it, or
meaning like she would have been aware to some degree of that, right? Is that what you're saying?
Right. You would think so, or wanting to be so close to Dorothy.
And so why would you choose to go in there if you knew that?
Right.
There was...
And if that's the case, why are they haunted in the first place? Are they just haunted by the grief, or is it like their death of their son activates some sort of I don't know.
I'm
sort of draw
I'm interested to know what happened with the family, because they finally mentioned the family that lived in there before Dorothy's parents, and that would have been in the 50s and before.
Right. Yeah.
So it did make me want. This is the first time we've heard mention of that. So I did find myself then being curious, since they brought it up, about like who else owned that home and what happened to them and their family, and would that provide some more insight into what's happening now with the Turners.
Right.
Another callback that I forgot to bring up earlier that I want to mention, and I think it kind of ties with this too, is I thought that, I did feel like when we saw at the end, after she's had that smoke monster dream, the way that she's like laying in the bed with Dorothy, almost mirror, like looks like a baby would be in the womb.
Oh, sure. She was scared.
The way that she was curled up and her positioning of that and where she was positioned.
What it made me think of was when in Josephine season 3 finale, when Dorothy wants to leave, doesn't Leanne kind of grab her by the leg?
She does. Yeah, she does.
It reminded me of that. Like Leanne's even in her sleep, it's like, I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to let you walk away.
Yeah, that's true too. By the legs again. Yeah. Also, it made me think of Uncle George, like getting in the crib and in that position when he was there. Now, I think that's because the cross was over the crib and therefore protective, and that was the only place that he felt safe. But we all thought it was strange. Why would this man? But he came in and he's like, this is a godless house, and the only place that he felt safe to sleep was in that crib underneath that cross. So that kind of tells you too that like Uncle George recognizes that there is a darkness in this home.
He knew it from the beginning.
Right.
Do you think that's part of the reason why he was so eager or urgently trying to get Leanne out?
Yes.
Would make the most sense, yeah.
Ooh.
Because he knows that she's susceptible
Mhm.
Yes.
and she has power. And so for
Mhm.
him, that was like a perfect storm of stuff for it was a recipe for bad.
Yeah.
Ugh, it just puts it all in a new context.
Yeah.
Or it adds more background to the story, more info. I really like that.
And looking back at, we talked in the highlights about like the darkness and the light and kind of how Lost and what happened with that was kind of informing my thought process in terms of this house. But
I was thinking about that too, and I don't know if I mentioned the parallel with the lights in the Turner house going out and then the ones down the street one by one.
Yeah.
Just like, Lost with the metaphor of the bottle. And
the sounds and the weird like clicking sounds and the
right.
The lights that flicker and just there was a lot of that.
So if the darkness that's attached to the house that's using Leanne as a servant or vessel, it wants to get out and take over the world, right?
I think so. Yeah.
That's what we're seeing in the dreams.
Right. Yeah.
What I thought was cool was during the seance when Bobby's the tall one, right? When Bobby's hearing the wailing, first she says, it's taking me outside of the house. Oh, no, she's showing me the house, but it's different. The paint's peeling, the walls, and all that. I've never seen such a clear vision. She's putting me on the street. I can see something through the windows or the dark shadow. And then it goes in on the wailing. And I thought, oh my God, is that because she's outside where Jericho died in the car? The wailing, it's hurting my ears.
Yeah.
Right.
He's desperate. No one's coming to help him.
Right.
Why won't they come?
Yeah.
But
I mean, it could also, but even now after everything we've talked about, what if Leanne was affecting what she was seeing too?
Ooh.
Because basically the closing moments in Leanne's dream or dream prophecy or whatever it is pretty much exactly what Bobby describes during the seance.
Yeah.
So, how does one influence the other? Which direction is the influencing?
I mean, if it's just,
and I wrote down like, is Leanne having dreams, visions, desires and premonitions? Is she in control of her powers? And if she is, how does she plan to use them? And also, who will sacrifice themselves in the end for the greater good? And does the smoke monster and those concepts, do they give us any clues on the potential end game for Servant? So those were kind of like my big questions that I felt at the end of the episode that were kind of in my head.
Those are big questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I really hope it's Dorothy.
Yeah.
Finally doing the right thing.
Yeah, me too.
Well, she'll at least get some knowledge, I think. I don't know about what is the right thing to do.
To let go of Jericho.
Yeah,
because she lost him.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll get that.
So she sacrifices herself and then Leanne follows after her. I'll
Yeah.
never let you go, Dorothy.
No,
I'm
I
coming.
That would not be out of the realm of possibility
we're
for
one
sure.
soul. We're one soul.
Yeah.
What was your favorite Julian line of the week? What'd you like? Did you like the post vibrator discovery of it's bad?
Yeah.
Bad? Did you like the twins?
Horrible thing.
Horrible. Hey, go nurses. Get your
Sex positive fairy witch
Yes,
nurses.
exactly.
Yes.
right. Yeah.
Indeed.
But that actually, I love your idea that potentially there was a bottom in that box that he didn't see. So that's a really cool idea. It would be great if that was the case, or interesting, but we'll see.
That's when Bev will get that wicked smile and haha.
We tricked you.
Call me Trojan.
Oh,
Horse. Trojan horse.
Oh.
Yes. Well done.
Well, there we go.
On that note,
Right.
next week the episode is called Boo.
Boo.
And it says on the site that Sean sees Leanne's true colors while she hunts her enemies on Halloween.
Yeah, Leanne's gonna do some fighting.
And
Yeah.
She's gonna break an arm in a stairway or
Ooh.
railing.
That sounds fun.
So gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep your eye on whomever is dressed like a skeleton.
Okay.
He's the one that she kicks to the ground and then she puts his arm between the,
Ooh.
the rails and then goes crunch. And like,
Then we're gonna see some bones.
Oh, we are? Did we see that in the original trailer, or is this a new clip that I haven't seen yet?
I
no,
haven't seen the
just
clip.
trailer. Is there a new clip out?
No,
Oh,
no, I don't think.
I don't think so. But it'll be interesting. The idea of Sean seeing that happen is
Yeah.
by that. You'd think, I don't know. Although you'd think at this point that they would get it, but maybe he's still being willfully ignorant to Leanne. I don't know. So, well, anything else that you guys want to add before we wrap this one up?
Oh, just that there was a nice ending between Sean and Dorothy and maybe setting that up of the alignment or the realignment.
Yes.
You know, the pancake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked that moment too. That was
Yeah.
Sweet.
Was it sweet?
Yeah. As sweet as Dorothy's gonna get.
Yeah.
right.
Right.
It was progress, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Look at it. Yeah, progress. You know, I remember Dorothy early on in whatever earlier on, right? In season
1.
probably was it 1 or 2? I don't remember. But
2, she was
she's telling Leanne, like, you are not going to separate us. You're not going, like, we're a team.
Oh, 2. Yeah. No.
And yeah, like in 2 a.m. and like around that time when she held her captive. So hopefully that's still
We'll see what that really looks like.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's it.
Did we do it again?
Huh?
We did it again?
We did it again. We made it.
Oh.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening and watching. Please, if you enjoyed the video and you want to keep getting updates on anytime we're dropping new videos or deep dives or whatever they are, go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and TikTok. We're on TikTok too as @ServantDecoded. And please leave any comments you have, any questions, any of your theories in the comments below, because we're always having fun reading what people think. So, and we just wanted to thank those of you that are watching and listening and commenting, and for all the kind words and also constructive criticism as well. We're still growing and learning, even though we're on our second full year doing this, but we have a great time doing it. So we hope you enjoy it as well. Thanks again. And we will be back next week to talk about Boo. And I'm sure we'll have quick videos here and there with other fun things. So we will see you soon. All right. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.